Welcome to Positive Connections Radio. This is Mike Cook. This podcast is directed towards first responders and others who may be suffering in silence and are fearful to ask for help. You're not alone. You don't have to lose it all in order to get help. Trust yourself, stand up, and break the stigma. Welcome back to Positive Connections Radio. I have with me a great guest, Kyle Overmyer. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Mike. I appreciate for the invitation.
You're welcome. And Kyle was a sheriff, got into some trouble, paid a consequence, is here in recovery right now speaking to us on the other side of the circle. Kyle, let us know about what led you to be a sheriff. How'd you become a sheriff? What your childhood was like, and that led you to do that career path.
Well, Mike, my childhood couldn't have went any better. I had two great parents. They're still married after 50 plus years today. I connect with them several times daily versus whether it's text or make a phone call to them. I stay close to them, and they've always been supportive. Grew up, went to a private Catholic school, and my father actually was a captain at the sheriff's office, who then I became the sheriff of. My mom had a good job working as well. And I ended up following the footsteps. And at first, my father said, don't do it. Went to college, didn't know what I wanted to do, dropped out. Instead, I did what he said not to do. And I went to the police academy, and the rest is history.
So this is in Sandusky, Ohio, right?
Well, Sandusky County. And our county seat is Freemont, Ohio. We're up near Lake Erie.
Okay. So how many people are on the department itself?
There's over 100 people that are on the department. The Sandusky County is about 65 to 70,000 population wise.
So you got hired as a sheriff?
Well, I got hired. Actually, I worked my way up. I worked in corrections for a few years. I didn't want to stay in corrections forever. I did go back to college and received an associate's degree in criminal justice. And then further, I got a bachelor's degree in business administration. And that helped me work up my way up. I went to the Road Patrol, Detective Bureau, and then I was assigned, I worked some undercover with DEA as well.
And what happened during your time as a sheriff?
I was considered a deputy, and then I worked my way up through the ranks. I was detective captain, a sergeant, and a captain. And then eventually at 34, I had the opportunity to run for sheriff and was elected sheriff at 34, which I'm still the youngest in county history, and I was the youngest in the state of Ohio at the time.
So what happened after that? You got into some injuries and some problems?
Yeah, as time went on, you know as well as I do, you get older, you get your aches and pains, and my youth kind of caught up with me. I broke both of my ankles as a child in sports, and so I ended up going to a specialist, and they prescribed me Vicodin. So right away, I was on 105 Vicodin a month, and that's how it all began.
Yeah, I know what that is. The opiate epidemic, a lot of us do get caught into taking pills for pain for legitimate reasons. A certain percentage of us really like it a lot, and then it becomes a problem, and sometimes we end up losing it all to that drug. Hopefully some of us do make it out. You've made it out of it. First of all, you've never tried that drug before for oxycodone or Vicodin, right?
No, and of course, I had a couple surgeries, and they gave it to you, and I paid no attention to it then. It was a short-term use. At this time in my life, it was something different. It didn't only help with the physical pain, but the biggest thing was the mental pain. Mm-hmm. I was dealing with a lot of issues at the sheriff's office, involved with a fatal shooting, and at one time, I had $62 million in lawsuits due to the job that I was dealing with as well. And I think the totality of everything, they came and overwhelmed me.
At that time, how long were you a sheriff for, or were you a deputy for?
I had a little less than 20 years when I was elected sheriff. So it was when I was about 36 years old when I was diagnosed and prescribed the opiates.
Okay. Before that, did you have any problems with drinking alcohol at all, or any kind of?
No. not at all. Sometimes I would even go a year or two being abstinent from drinking alcohol because of being on call, and I didn't want to show up on scene with booze on my breath or under the influence making poor decisions.
So you find yourself, you're a sheriff, you become dependent on opiates, Vicodin
Correct.
specifically. So where did that take you from there?
It took me to the point where I was running out every month. And so I had to find a solution for that problem to feed my addiction. I started doctor shopping, which then I graduated to Percocets. I'd come up with the excuse of hurting my back, twisting it, picking up a lawnmower, any way I could figure out to manipulate the doctors to feed my addiction. Well, sometimes when I would run out of those, I went to the Takeback box, which was at the local police departments and the sheriff's office. I put my hand in there and figured out, you know what? I can steal these. They're going to dispose of them anyway. And it's easy to feed my addiction.
I totally get that. So the drop-off box is where people yearly, usually, or I'm not sure where at your department, but in San Diego, they do a drop-off, the DEA, or they go to police departments and drop off to the lockbox, and then they destroy it.
Correct. And that's what I did on a few occasions, and it got me through.
And people that don't understand how powerful this drug is, I know personally, you're telling me my story in a different way. I totally get it, my brother. And it's terrible. And it makes you do things that you normally wouldn't do just to get that drug in your system and feel normal again, basically.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Mike. And a lot of times I describe it as it's hell disguised as heaven is what it is.
And a lot of us listening too might be had been prescribed that before or had some issues with that. And stopping it early is the best thing, even though your brain says how great it is and how great it makes you feel. Stopping it early. And thank you so much for coming on and describing that to other people, knowing that there is recovery available. You don't have to lose it all to find recovery. And you found yourself as a sheriff stealing the medication out of the lockbox, addicted to opiates, and what happened after that?
Well, I had finished my second term, which I ran for re-election every 4 years. Was up for getting close to re-election for the third term. Back on February 3rd, 2015, I was red flagged at the pharmacy because of multiple doctors, and that was the day that my recovery actually began. I went cold turkey, flushed my last Vicodin down the toilet. And as well as I do, Mike, getting off opiates, I got sick and sicker and even more sick. So I was going through the time of getting myself clean, but almost a year later, then it caught up with me when I was running for re-election, and they got me with a 42 count indictment for all these acts.
Wow. So evidently, you found out that they were hot on you, and you stopped everything. However, there must have been some kind of investigation already in play.
There was. It was pushed, and I understand. I had an opponent. I made it through the primary. I beat the guy in the primary, no problem. And there was some rumblings about my addiction. Of course, I was in denial, didn't want anybody to know.
Of course.
And I was still battling with denial with myself as well. And then the final straw was actually August 23rd, 2016. I did the ribbon cutting for the county fair in the morning in uniform. And then I had a jail uniform after 6 o'clock at night, and I was in handcuffs and under indictment and in jail.
In one day, that's what happened. What was that like? How did they contact you, and what happened with that?
Well, I had spoken to an attorney before because I knew that they were going to go to grand jury, so I wanted to be prepared. So they called me, and I turned myself in. They gave me a bond. I bonded out, and because my ego was getting the best of me and I was still wanting to be in denial and didn't want anyone to know that I was truly an addict and I was going through recovery. And even though I was still abstinent from drugs, I didn't want anybody to know that and have that stigma about myself.
Yeah.
And so I continued to run for sheriff. I marched in parades, got in debates. And at that time, I was still looking that I was going to win. I had two opponents and I was still the favorite. And what's kind of strange and ironic, I think sometimes that's taboo with the public that I have this going on, and it made me more popular with
Did it?
the public. It was like the hype, and I fed into that hype. But then November 3rd, 2016, I got my bond revoked because I bought my son a crossbow for his birthday, and they considered that a dangerous weapon, and it was a violation of my bond.
Really? So they hooked you back up then?
They hooked me, and from that point on, I didn't see the other side until 4 years later, because that's when I started to surrender and break down. And I thought, you know what, the show is over, and I gotta realize that I am an addict. I gotta deal with it myself and start dealing with my loved ones, my friends, and my family, and take responsibility for my addiction and get myself better.
Well, how did that happen? So you went to trial. Did you plead guilty to a certain amount of counts, or you had 42 counts against you?
Yes, I ended up pleading to 12 counts. I actually wrote letters of apology, had a lot of support letters, and asked for treatment, because as well as I do, even though you're clean, you're still going through it, Mike.
Right.
Especially on the mental aspect. And I had to figure out what was going on inside. And the judge told me, I'm going to give you the best treatment in the state of Ohio. I'm going to give you 4 years in prison, which we all know there's more drugs in prison than there is on the streets.
Of course.
And
that sounds a little sarcastic to me from a judge. It sounds like you said that before. Yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely. But I took that and, I ran with it in a positive manner. And, I got better instead of bitter over all this, and
for you.
And I still say it today. Those 4 years were the best years of my life.
What were you thinking before, knowing that you were going to be sentenced to 4 years, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't know it until the day of sentencing.
Really?
Nobody knew.
But you knew you were going to go to prison no matter what, whether it was 1 year or 4 years.
Yeah, and I in the back of my mind, I was hoping maybe they'll give me some kind of programming or probation or something.
Right.
But that was all wrong.
Right. So you prepared yourself when you got into prison? What was that like going in there as a former sheriff and now convicted sheriff?
Well, I spent 30 days in the hole off the jump, which in solitary confinement. They wanted to separate me because everybody knew my story. Everybody was familiar with me. I put some of those people in prison myself, and they sent me to protective custody at first for a while. And I had enough of that. So I signed myself out and went to general population with everyone else. And I did time with people that I actually arrested and put in prison.
Wow. So they knew when you were out there that who you were and what you've done and where you're at now, right?
A lot of the other inmates referred to me as sheriff. That was what they would call me. Wow. And it was out of respect, actually. And I had to earn my respect when I got into prison, though.
Yeah. How did you do that?
Well, not only standing your ground, but unfortunately, I had an issue with a gang member, and we went and I handled it in a physical manner, and it was over with. And then I gained the respect. My roommate too was a gang member. My workout partner was a gang member who's also a Muslim. And I embraced the whole experience, Mike. And even out of respect for him being a Muslim, I did Ramadan for a month. I fasted and read the Quran to understand his religion. That's
amazing. So you didn't have to get back into drugs. I know there's lots of drugs in prison, and it's a lot more expensive than out on the street. So I'm sure it was around you all the time. How'd you avoid that stuff and stay away from it while you're serving your time?
Well, as soon as I got off the bus, it was they knew my story. They knew what my weakness was, and of course, the first one was on them. The next one was on me. And
of course.
I can still say today that I was abstinent from drugs from day one, and they were there every day. I don't care what drug it was, Suboxone, Subutex, heroin, crack, marijuana, of course, the hooch. I saw it all. But Mike, I stayed firm because I knew if I was going to be strong enough, that was the place that was going to make or break me. And it made me.
So how'd you find recovery inside prison? Are there programs in there? Are there churches or any kind of organizations that help you out?
There, the program is very limited, and hopefully they can, grow on that as time goes on. And I look forward to actually working with the prison systems here in Ohio after my experience. But there was an IOP program I took. I did do that. I actually got my chemical dependency counseling license. I went through Sinclair Community College while I was in there because I wanted to understand myself, the disease addiction, and then also utilize it when I got out to help others.
That's great.
So I did that too.
That's great. And a personal recovery, I know that prisons have H&I, hospitals and institutions, like 12-step programs that go in there, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, any anonymous program, and probably other groups also. Did you get involved in any of that?
I did. They would have NA and AA meetings, and I went to everyone every week from the time I got in. And actually, I went to my first AA meeting in the Marion County Jail when I was getting ready to get sentenced. That's where I started to surrender. That was my first one. And I remember there was only like 4 other guys in it. And that's where I got my first taste. And that's where I took my first step in that journey.
I know what I thought before about 12-step programs and AA groups when I was a police officer. What was your thought about before you got really deep into narcotics and stuff? What did you think about those kind of programs that people went to?
I thought maybe they weren't as solid, so to speak, is what everybody said, because I would have thought this could never happen to me. I'm too strong. I wear a badge. Mike, you wear a badge too. You understand. I thought maybe they were more, hocus pocus, there was no truth to them. But now since I did the 12 steps a couple times while incarcerated, I still read Just for Today, attend some meetings here and there. It's the real deal. And they are what they say they are. And that's what keeps a lot of people sober today.
Yeah. Oh, I know a lot of people. I've been in the program for 9.5 years. Yeah. When I went through my ordeal, the first 12-step meeting I went was in a detox, and I was blown away because my whole career, I thought it was this culty type of experience. No one was serious about it, but the people we deal with on the streets, the ones that are usually not sober, and if they know anything about going to a program, they're always going to say it's a bunch of BS because it doesn't work because they're not working it. However, if you do go into a program, and there's lots of ones too, now there's first responder ones only. A lot of cops, firefighters, dispatchers don't want to sit in the same room with a person that they might have arrested or contacted somehow. Although, if you think about it, if you're in the same room with a person and they're both there for the same reason, to stay sober and figure this all out, it's probably not a bad thing. And I remember relating to people when I went to an inpatient facility, and I was the only cop or ex-cop at that time. It wasn't official yet, and they knew it. But I was able to associate with them and be in the same plane with them about addiction and recovery. And I found it just amazing that I was able to feel like I was at home with them. Did you get that sense of feeling with other people?
I did. It's interesting you mentioned that, and it's making me reminisce about my first meeting out of prison that I went to, and there were a couple guys that I arrested there. And I was a boxer growing up. There was another guy that I boxed at the same gym. But one of the individuals come up to me, and, a lot of people were whispering and stuff when I came in. And after the meeting, the one guy comes up to me and embraced me and hugged me and said, "You're one of us now."
Wow. How'd that make you feel? I could tell it's emotional.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. I mean, you're like, bam.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what really hits home with you. And, Mike, that goes to acceptance, other people accepting other people,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at that time, you felt like the whole world was closing in on you. And here comes a guy that, accepted you and said, basically, welcome to the club. You're home now.
Yep.
That's amazing.
And away it went. And ever since those days of, first getting to AA meetings on the outside of those prison walls, they've only gotten better.
That is great.
Each day gets better, Mike.
Yeah.
Like every day I wake up, the whole recovery thing is just a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And we just do it for today, right? It's only for this moment that you're
Yes.
able to even talk to me. And it's amazing. And I really appreciate your honesty and openness to all those, because you're not only helping yourself, you're helping countless other people out there. And for your experience, what you went through, the struggles that you survived through, and now coming out on the other side. And speaking of coming out on the other side, so it was 4 years exactly what they sentenced you to. You got out then, and
I did.
you got
Did every
released
day
in
of it.
what's that?
I did every day of it, Mike.
You did, man. You did every single day, and you worked a good program through it all. And I know it's painful. However, this is a program of recovery and love,
Yeah.
and support. And it was it 2019 that you came out, or 2020?
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's been a little over a year now. They put me on parole for a year.
Okay.
I was successfully completed parole April 28th of this year.
All right. Congratulations
So that's
on
a
that.
great day for me too.
I bet.
Yeah, and to say the least, my first job out, nobody wanted to really take a chance on me. I was frying chicken at the local chicken place that I went to as a sheriff back in Sandusky County in Fremont. And the owner and I always stayed close. And he's like, Kyle, I'm going to give you a job. So that's how it all began.
What about, let's bring it back a little bit about your last day in prison and walking out of those gates. What was going on inside you? What feelings were you getting tugged both ways? What was going on with you then?
You know, after you're in there so long, it's almost, you get scared and you're like, okay, am I going to screw up? Am I going to go back? What's going to go on? Even though you're doing the right things and you're working the program,
right?
There's still a little bit of doubt in your mind. And I can see why people do go back. You get to the point where you are institutionalized. I mean, up until, 6 or 7 months ago, I was still using the same prison toothbrush. I couldn't let go of things. Yeah. And to keep myself grounded today, I still wear the same Timberland boots that I walked in those prison yards with. I wear them. The only thing I've changed different, I had to get new shoestrings for them.
Wow.
And I wear those to remind me, don't forget where you came from, Kyle. And I do that. Maybe
someday you'll be able to put them on a shelf somewhere and just have a memory of them. And you're walking in different shoes now, and you're walking a different direction. And what brought you to right this moment? I mean, you got out of prison, you got a job at the chicken place, and you started making chicken. And what happened after that? How'd you get to right here?
Well, I was involved with a woman at the end of my prison term. Stayed with her for a while, didn't work out. I had no one place. I was homeless. Called a woman that I knew, wonderful woman. She's like, you know what, Kyle, I got a spare bedroom. So I got grabbed an air mattress and flopped there for a while. As time went on, met someone at one of my AA meetings.
Was it another woman?
No, not another woman.
Okay.
And they said, you know what? We run a facility, know about your story, see your work in the program, love to give you a shot. So I went and worked as a behavioral tech, worked my way up as, working groups, doing community outreach up north. And then another place found me down in Columbus. And the week before that, I had met the love of my life and got remarried. And the next Friday, we're out eating pizza, and I get a phone call, a job offer, took it. And by the grace of God, it was in Columbus, Ohio. And then now someone else came and gave me another great opportunity and out of Pennsylvania, Dreamlife. And now I'm working, doing community outreach and helping individuals get into treatment and working with their families to get better like I am today. And it's been a great life.
That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad that you got through this. I'm so glad that you were able to contact me and get on the show. So right now you work for what company, and it's a recovery place, right?
Yes. It's a Dreamlife Recovery. It's in Donegal, Pennsylvania. It's a detox, PHP, IOB facility. And it's a beautiful facility. And actually, I've already helped a couple folks get there this week and start to get better in their journey.
That's great. And you're sharing your experience, strength, and hope to help other people. And,
yes.
And it's amazing. It's amazing. Sobriety is amazing. You can get through it without having to go back. You have your choice now to do that. And do you ever keep in contact with people that you knew before from law enforcement at all?
I
Have they ever contacted you?
Do. Absolutely. Yes, I do. I'm still in contact with several sheriffs, police officers. We communicate. Many of them have embraced me. I reach out to them, and now I'm actually traveling around. With my wife and I, we have a business called KO Addiction, which is the Kyle Overmyer Addiction. And I share my story and reach out all across the state now. And it's been a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or knockout addiction, right?
Well, yeah. And that kind of goes with the whole boxing thing. So
I like it. I like that role.
So no, everything, I couldn't written a better book, Speaking of books, I'm going to be working on that as well. Because I want to share my story even further. Yeah.
And you're writing it as we speak now. So how would they get a hold of you, Kyle? If someone wanted to reach out and look you up?
They can contact me. I'm big on social media. That's how you and I got connected, which I don't believe in coincidences, Mike. I believe everything happens for a reason, like this, building this friendship and relationship with you, Mike. But the best way to get a hold of me, they can contact me. And it's my number, 419-455-0793 or kovermeyer6@gmail.com. Or you can find me on Facebook at KO Addiction. And I always reach back out. I don't turn anybody away. I do my best. I give 110, not 100.
Good. And you got such a remarkable story and a remarkable story of recovery too. Thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything that you would like the audience to know or hear?
Well, they got to remember one thing in recovery. There's no such thing as perfection, only progression. And it's one day at a time. And don't use the rearview mirror. Don't look back.
Right on. Thanks for listening to Positive Connections Radio on the Mental Health News Radio Network. If you're having issues, you can do it alone. However, you don't have to. It takes courage to ask for help. How can we be there for others if we're unwilling to be there for ourselves? So until next time, be strong, stand up, speak your truth, and break the stigma.